What is up, everybody? What's up? My gosh, it's been a couple weeks since I've been on TBF Pod, Typical Browns Fan Podcast. Thank you for everyone who follows, likes, comments, and subscribes to everything that I make, everything that I do. My gosh, I feel like my chair is going to fall. Fixed it. Not going to embarrass myself on the intranet. Nonetheless, I am live today, Sunday. It's cold. I don't understand weather, man. Like we had a perfect week of 40, 50 degrees. It was spring-like vibe, probably because we felt like 0 degree temperatures for a while. So it felt warmer than what it should have been. But nonetheless, we were warm. But today it's taking a turn for the worse. I went outside to get a couple of things from the store, and nonetheless, I realized this week is going to be horrible. More snow on the way, more cold is here to stay, and I'm not a happy camper. I'm a miserable man right now because of this horrible weather. Kind of teased me last week. I was kind of getting used to wearing a hoodie to work. Now I'm with to bundle up again in a t-shirt in some what do they call those, thermals, long sleeve shirt and a thick coat, parka. Hate it. How's everybody doing today? How's everybody doing on this Sunday? I got a couple things I want to get off my chest. Today we're going to talk about the NFL Combine starting this week. Browns news. We're going to talk about some free agency and hit up the typical salary cap situation for your Cleveland Browns. And depending on what else you guys want to talk about, just hit me in the comments below. What do you guys want to talk about? What do you guys have to get off your chest? Until then, continue to like, follow, and subscribe. So we're going to start off right away, right now with Browns news. I don't know if you heard the news yesterday, but JOK, well, when it happened with JOK, we kind of assumed, right? So there are reports coming out saying JOK won't play another down. And we're like, oh, it's not surprising. But at the same time, the reality hurts. It hurts. The fact that JOK most likely won't play another down as a Cleveland Brown. For those who don't know, he hurt himself, paralyzed himself, doing a tackle, making a tackle. I think it might have been on Henry. I could be wrong. Against Baltimore a couple years ago. And been out since. And then, we had hope last year, and then they draft Carson, and people were like, why are you drafting this dude? So it makes sense. I think the Browns were preparing themselves for the worst. They probably prepared themselves for the worst last year and just knew what was going to happen. Draft Carson, perfect replacement for JOK. It still would have been beautiful to watch them two play together, right? Now I don't know if Carson would have been drafted if JOK was there. They probably would have went with more of a need instead of a linebacker there, but they probably saw they needed a linebacker, so they drafted one at that point. But JOK is out, unfortunately. He probably won't play this year. And that just stinks overall. As a Browns fan, he was one of my favorites. He developed pretty well too. Tarver really developed him. Um, yeah, it was pretty bad to see. KP say, yeah, Derrick Henry, bad hit from JOK. Sad. May never play able to play again. Yeah, Ken Henry, man, that dude's big like it is, and I think he led with his shoulder. Led with his shoulder, and I don't know. It looked like I thought maybe it was a stinger at first, but then he didn't get up. I'm like, oh dang, yeah, that's not good. And I guess he can't get he cannot get a doctor to clear him. And why would you want after the scary experience like that? Why would you want somebody to? I would you would have to second guess, even if someone said that you're fine. Like I think as a human being, you're gonna have some doubts. Probably laying there for as long as he did, you're thinking many things like I'm not gonna be able to walk again, or I'm not gonna be able to do the simple things that I normally would do, and then it all come back. You probably don't want to second guess that again. So that news dropped late yesterday. Also, combine starts this week. Who's excited for the combine? The NFL combine starts this week. A lot of Browns fans are going to be following anticipation, understandably so. Why? Because there's a lot of things we need to have on our team. We have 10 picks this year, and we're hoping to get all 10 picks filled somehow, some way. Obviously they'll probably trade up. I don't know. We'll see. It probably won't be 10 rookies, but they probably need it. They probably need all 10 offensive linemen, but they at least need five. according to reports, because they forget about Dwan Jones. If he can even play, he's always hurt. Um, but yeah, they're going to need some offensive linemen. So that's coming up Thursday at 3 p.m. You got the kickers, defensive linemen, and linebackers. Who's going to watch that one? Are we interested in some defensive linemen? I think you might need a defensive tackle to help. I don't think one of our defensive tackles is going to be healthy. Collins, he got an injury last year, so you might be looking at the defensive line late for a replacement linebacker. Do we need another linebacker? Probably, depending on what they're going to do with Bush. Rodriguez from Texas Tech might be somebody Browns fans are interested look into. He's kind of like got a Carson vibe to him. He's somebody I've been looking into. So maybe we'll talk about that more on a Tuesday show. But yeah, look into Rodriguez, linebacker, Texas Tech. Kickers. Anyone interested in kickers? Anybody want to see the kickers work out at the NFL Combine? I wonder how many people actually watch the. I wonder how many people are in the crowd. How many teams are in the crowd to watch a kicker kick? What do they do exactly? James Frank say, do you think Mike Hall will make a progress this year? Yes, I think. Yeah, well, I hope so. That's the hope. I'm more worried about Mike Hall's attitude and his personality right now than anything. But we'll see how that works out. But I still think you might need somebody, to sub out, even with if Mike Hall was to start there. I think his run game was an issue for him last year, obviously, because the run game was bad when Collins went out. So yeah, kickers, defensive linemen, and linebackers on Friday at 3 p.m. Thursday at 3 p.m. That's what's happening. And Friday at 3 p.m. You got tight ends and defensive backs. Anybody interested in tight ends and defensive backs? I think we are. I think you need now a lot of people are trying to link us to Isaiah Likely. I would strongly disagree unless they're going to go with an all flat out pass happy offense. But typically Mr. Todd Monken has a tight end that can catch like Fannin and a tight end that can block and probably do a little bit of catching too when needed. But I just don't see us paying what Isaiah Likely is going to demand for a tight end in which has the same type of skill set as Harold Fannin. So I think you're going to look at somebody in the draft later rounds, maybe second, maybe third, fourth rounds that can also pass block heavy is the term that I want to use. So that's who I've been searching for, who I've been doing my homework on is people who is specifically pass block happy or run block happy, and watch they do the opposite. They will draft somebody who's a catch happy guy, who doesn't block well, because everything I've said, they've done opposite. So don't listen to me because I've been wrong 99.9% of the time. KP Young says Justin Jolly is going to be a beast. I think he would be a good guy who also, I think his pass blocking grade is pretty good. I think it can improve, but that's somebody you could probably get in the later rounds for sure. James Frank said we lost Njoku. Loss is a wrong term, and I'm going to get to that. That's one of my topics that I'm going to talk about here tonight on my podcast. James Frank said Cade Otton is like an extension of a O line, and he gets nice hands. That is who. If you're going to go in free agency, that's it. That's an ideal pick. But we're going to talk about a little bit about free agency here. Like how much are they going to allocate to each position in free agency? Because you got priority and then you got people that you're going to need. And I think there's a position too that I want to talk about that we're often forgetting that we need on the defensive side, especially with the new scheme with Rutenberg, Coach Rudy's defensive scheme is coming in. There's going to be more heavy on nickel and safety. And I think we need to, as Browns fans, don't be surprised if there's a nickel and or safety either drafted or picked up during free agency. And I'm going to get into that a little bit later. Brown for pick 24. Brown who? Harry Clark said he wants Brown. I don't know what Brown is. The color brown, another brown uniform. Like, I'll be more specific. Other than that, Saturday. So tight ends will be interesting. Defensive backs. We're going to need defensive backs. You might need a nickel in this draft. You might need another safety-ish in this draft. So that's somebody you might want to be interested in watching Friday at 3 p.m. Saturday, 1 p.m. is the meet in which most people watch the NFL Combine, and that's why it's on Saturday at 1 o'clock prime time. AJ Brown? No, no. Wait, here you want AJ Brown at 24? We're gonna talk about that too. So I'm gonna table that. We're gonna table that for later, but that's a crazy take. That's a whoo, good grief. AJ Brown at 24. We're gonna talk about that. We're gonna debate. Saturday at 1 p.m. You got quarterbacks, wide receivers, and running backs. That is going to be a heavy hitter for not just Browns fans, but everyone, because everyone loves to watch quarterbacks. Everyone wants to watch receivers for multiple reasons, because you need a receiver. You also want to see who can be a sleeping receiver. A sleeper is what they call them in the draft, where the Browns can get, or your team can get in the later rounds. And you want we don't need running backs, right? You might need a late running back depending on what they do with the Rocket Sanders. You do need a third running back, but we'll see how they handle that. But you don't need a quarterback, right? Do we need a quarterback? Do we need a quarterback? I don't know. I don't think we need a quarterback. This year we don't need a quarterback. Let's run it with who we have. Now, don't be surprised if there's a guy there late 5 or 6 and the Browns pick him up. There's a lot of mock drafts that I've seen where a couple quarterbacks who might be enticing for the Browns to work on, quote unquote, in the later rounds. But we'll see. But I personally don't think you should get a quarterback here. Draft everything offense, some defense, obviously, and set up for Shador to be successful. And if he's not, then the next guy already have talent in place, and you can just give him the keys and let him drive. That's just my take on that. Lucas said Nick Singleton in later rounds would be nice. Yeah, good running back from, is it Penn State, right? I believe Penn State. Correct me if I'm wrong on that, Lucas, but I think he's a running back from Penn State. I looked at him earlier today and I thought he might be a good late round, but I don't think they're going to wait like a third, fourth. I think they're really going to draft need every aspect of the way. And unfortunately for me, that hurts me at 6 because I'm a big Caleb Downs guy. And the guys talk me out of it all the time on the Tuesday show. But I'm in talks with talking to another podcaster, another creator that we had on earlier. We had on before on the Bearder Browns podcast. He's going to come on with me. We're gonna try to talk some people into Caleb Downs. We're going to do it. We're just going to do this is Draft Caleb Downs show. If you disagree with it, just listen. If you agree with it, just listen. And we're just going to see where it goes. I'm working on that maybe in a couple weeks here. But yeah, I think they draft need for sure. And Sunday at 1 p.m. is going to be very much of an interest of Browns fans. And I probably think the Browns organization, because Sunday at 1 p.m., you have the offensive lineman. The offensive linemen we desperately need. Like I said, we need 5,000 of them right now. 5,000 offensive linemen. Right now we have one, and he's probably not fully healthy. So if you were to line up today, the offense, you would have just Jones and was it Zinter who's hurt, and Whippler, who is also hurt. So all three of you guys is hurt. I think one of them might be a free agent. Lucas says, what's your opinion on trading back with Dallas if they tag and trade Pickens? I don't want Pickens. Pickens is a good guy. Well, maybe I do. Maybe you can talk me into wanting Pickens. It's just his attitude. And I think we need guys with good culture here, who have good attitudes. And I think that's who the Browns should target. Now, if they get Pickens, I'm not going to complain. But pairing him and Jerry Jeudy together might be a waiting to blow, in my opinion. But trading back with Dallas, we talked about it earlier on Tuesday's show. I think if they want to trade up to 6, you need to get a one for next year. It's just my opinion. With pick 6, KP Young says, with pick 6, only 3 guys I draft: Downs, Tate, Tyson. Tyson scares me because of his injury history, so I might knock him down. I would go Tate, and I would go as high as Lemon. I would do Mekhi Lemon. I wasn't high on him really until I really started looking into it, and a lot of scouts have him graded really high. And I think once after Saturday, Mekhi Lemon is going to jump off the draft board, and he might be wide receiver 2 over Tyson or even maybe depending on the team, even wide receiver one over Tate. That's just my take. Um, James said Pickett's attitude since being in Dallas is totally opposite of him staying in Pittsburgh because he's getting the ball. That's why. In Pittsburgh, and here, that's my worry. It's like if you're gonna get a receiver here who's the ball dominant and ball needy, it's not gonna work out here. That's why Jerry Judy had a sourpuss year last year because his numbers were down and he was just depressed. You can't do that this year. You just can't. And James agrees with me. Lemon is the best receiver in this draft. I'm trending that way with you too, James. I'm a Tate guy. I'm an Ohio State guy, and I want to write Tate till I die. But for some reason, Makai Lemon just sticks out to me. We're going to talk more about that later too. I'll probably do a wide receiver show right now. I mean, we got all summer long or most all these months. But that's your lineup for the NFL Combine. You got Thursday, 3 p.m. kickers, defensive linemen, linebackers. Friday, 3 p.m. tight ends, defensive backs. And Saturdays at 1 p.m. quarterbacks, wide receivers, and running backs. And Sunday at 1 p.m. offensive linemen. And we need a lot of those. We're going to talk about that a little bit more in depth here in a minute about how important Sunday is and is going to be for this team because of we need offensive linemen and offensive linemen that fit, not just offensive linemen that fit Todd Monken's system is more important. Right. So you want somebody that can pass block and run block because Todd Monken is a very versatile play caller. He's not going to rely on one thing, one skill set or another. He is going to call the play based upon what he thinks is successful, whether that's pass or run. It's going to be balanced. Well, supposedly, this is what they say. So we're going to see. We're going to give it. I mean, we got to give it a year and see what happens. But next topic of conversation I want to get into is the news of the week, which was pretty silly, in my opinion. If anyone's followed the Browns and you hear every bit of news that came out this past week, you just shook your head and said, my gosh, when is this going to end, Browns? And I blame the Browns specifically because you put this on yourselves. You're a horrible team. So people are just going to always tie you into either a quarterback or a receiver who has problems. And you're always going to do that. They're always going to do that. Why? Because you don't have a quarterback that people feel confident in, and you don't have a receiver that people don't feel confident in. You also have people throwing offensive linemen in there because why? You need those three things. And because you need three of those things, you're always in the headlines because those are the three most important parts on an offense, thus creating you always being in the algorithm of news for Browns fans because you are the man or woman that consumes the content of the Browns, and it's always need. They need a quarterback, they need a receiver, and they need offensive linemen. Every year, it's something of need. It's mainly quarterback. Yes, it's always quarterback or receiver. But this year, it adds a more complicated situation because now you need 5 offensive linemen. So that limits overall what you can do, even if you like a receiver or even if you like an offensive lineman that's probably you rate pretty high in free agency, you got to watch how much he's getting paid because you're only allocated so much money. And are you going to give an offensive lineman $25 million a year? We're going to talk about that. There's some red flags out there with some couple offensive linemen that a lot of people are pounding the pavement for. And you want to give him $20 million a year for this offensive scheme? I want to push back on that a little bit. But first news that dropped this week was the Wyatt Teller and David Njoku's goodbye letters. No, it's not the goodbye letters that bothered me. It's how people responded to those goodbye letters that bothered me. Because those goodbye letters weren't goodbye letters. Well, they were goodbye letters, but they weren't like, hey, I want to come. The Browns need me, but they can't afford me, so we're leaving type of newsletters. Or the Browns don't, the Browns are a dysfunctional organization, so we're leaving. Those letters are more like, hey, I'm leaving because it seemed like to them, they made the decision in those letters to leave the Browns. And it's been painted in that picture as in the media. Like, well, David Njoku decided to leave the Browns. Wyatt Teller decided not to sign and leave the Browns. But a lot of people have to understand the Browns didn't want them. If the Browns wanted them, they would have worked out a deal to either restructure the contract or extend them or both. We all knew, if you follow the podcast, if you follow any local Browns news reporter in general, knew David Njoku was not going to get signed. 30 years old. He has injury history. He was a little overweight last year. He played. His pass blocking was down. Worst year of his time here, even as a rookie. One of his worst years. I understand he's a fan favorite. I understand he everything, his charisma, everything oozes out. You like the guy. But to think that the Browns were going to sign him to a long-term extension is crazy to me. Crazy. And then you have Wyatt Teller, who obviously there's problems there in the beginning of the season, paints this letter, and people say, gee, Wyatt Teller doesn't even want to be on the team. Wyatt Teller was part of one of the worst Browns offensive linemen ever. Offensive line in recent history. And fans are complaining that the Browns are not signing him back. I thought maybe signing him can help you, maybe get a year or two to just fill the void. But that way you can get somebody else in a different position and you can focus somewhere else. That's why I would want him. But the fact that Wyatt Teller writes this letter saying, I'm leaving, it's been great, Cleveland, and fans are saying this organization sucks as no one wants to be here is false. You don't want to overpay for people like Wyatt Teller or David Njoku who are hurt. And we're going to see what they're going to get in open market. And typically you can say what you want about Barry. His draft picks haven't hit. Some of his signings are iffy, but they do value players on their team correctly. When people leave, a la Amari Cooper, they don't play as well. The only one that's questionable right now is Baker. Baker seems to be exactly what they are. 500, a guy that is inconsistent at times, can light the game up one moment and then next two games not be as so well played. But, that's something that bothered me this week. Also, rumor mill was insane this week. The rumor mill for the Browns were insane. Njoku was overpaid, overrated. Good dude, though. Teller is gone. Yes, Tim Richards said that, and I agree. Njoku had a 5-game stretch in which he was good, and that's when he had a quarterback. Now, that's not Njoku's fault. If he had a quarterback, he probably would have been pretty stellar here in Cleveland. The inconsistency at quarterback has hurt every bit of talent that could have came through here and probably would have been good. But because they were here and they didn't have a good quarterback, they never were able to go to be what they probably could have been. We don't know. But David Njoku, unfortunately, is one of those people who will never understand why he never reached his potential, other than I could say quarterback. David Njoku did, though, improve in his pass blocking. It's just this past year he did not do so well. And I think that's why they saw that and decided not to sign him. Not just that he's old. Eric Clark said, do you think Joe Thomas in his prime wasn't worth? No, I'm not saying that offensive lineman isn't worth $25 million. That's not what I'm saying. I'm sorry if that's coming off like that. I'm saying the options in which they have currently in free agency, I don't think is worth $25 million. If there was a Joe Thomas offensive lineman in here in this free agency, 100% sure he'll probably go for more than $25 million a year. I'm just saying. I'm sorry if it came off me saying you don't pay an offensive lineman $25 million a year, because if he's the right offensive lineman that fits your scheme, then you pay him. My problem is there's someone out there that people are advocating for that when you look at the numbers, you question, is he a good fit here? Matter of fact, he's one of the guys that screamed, Miles is coming after you, run, when you were playing against him. That's something that needs to be talked about in a little bit. But the Browns rumor mill this week was insane. First, you had Todd McShay saying that the Browns should trade for C.J. Stroud. Now, in theory, that's great. I think Todd Monken and C.J. Stroud would work perfectly. I like C.J. Stroud, not just because he's a Buckeye. I think he's going to be maybe top 15, high 10 quarterback. He was pretty good in his rookie. I think the league's catching up to him. I do think he's a victim of poor development in Houston. Bobby Slowick was his offensive coordinator, where he was successful at. He had a down year during that period of time. They let Bobby Slowick go, and now he kind of is regressing a little bit. In the playoff game, he threw a couple of interceptions. There's a red flags people are concerned about. But for me, I think if the Browns were to trade for him, if this is all rumors, I wouldn't be mad at it. Now, a lot of people are like, "Hey, don't trade with Houston. They ripped you off last time." I think the organization will hopefully learn better from that. And you're not CJ Stroud wasn't what Watson was when Watson thrown for 5,000 yards, where you feel like you have to give this guy everything to get him here. CJ Stroud is not that quarterback. So you won't be giving the house for him, but you'll be giving some up, but you wouldn't be giving the house for him. But I thought that trade talk was crazy because I don't think Houston's going to let him go. I understand that you're going to have to pay him close to, I think I saw a pretty, was it 30, 40 mil a year? I think it's up for a quarterback. Quarterback inflation is going to hit them hard, and that's going to limit them. So they might want to offload them. But the problem is, who you going to get him replaced? Who you going to replace him with? Once you have a quarterback, it's one of those things you got to keep him until you find his replacement. And San Francisco's been pretty good at that. Whenever Purdy went out, Mac Jones came in, kind of filled in nicely, and then Brock Purdy came in. Like teams have to find. That's why backup quarterback is going to be valuable, if not paid a little more in the next couple of years. The second one, the Browns should trade for number 24, trade their 24th pick for AJ Brown. And this is where we talked about earlier. Someone just brought this up. I think I forget what it was in the comments that they would trade AJ Brown. Why would you do that? First of all, I don't think Philadelphia can financially because I think his money is so big that it would take a huge cap hit. But AJ Brown is he's not a terrible person, but he's miserable in Philly where it's not as pass happy. And then you can get him here with Todd Monken, who already told you we're going to be pretty run dominant. So they're not going to be like, hey, we're going to pass AJ the ball 30 times a game. It's not going to happen. Just can't happen. Brian says, do not trade unless you can get more draft stock. I agree. You don't trade. You mean trade back, Brian? Trade back, or you trade. Yeah, kind of explain more in today. If you're talking about AJ Brown, then I personally don't think it's happening. AJ Brown, I don't think it should happen for one. I don't think it could happen for two because of financial reasons. But you don't want an AJ Brown on your team right now. Also, too, Andrew Barry said you're going younger on the offense. Why would they trade for close to 30-year-old receiver who is owed a lot of money the next couple of years? A lot of money. Look at over the cap and look at AJ Brown's money situation. You're going to be like, nope, ain't happening. Next one is Kyle Murray to the Browns if he is cut. Kyle Murray to the Browns. Some people say they should even trade for him. That's crazy talk. You don't. I'm not saying Kyle Murray can't be good. I'm just saying he probably can't be good here. Just can't be good here. It's not. Maybe in 2029 when we get our dome, but open air, can he throw in a non-open air dome? That's some stuff that people have to talk about. That's crazy. One of my personal favorites, and I think the reason why this is one of my favorites is because there might be interest here for myself because I would like to see this project happen. Todd Monken may be interested in Anthony Richardson. That was insane. That's insane. Anthony Richardson has not done anything since being drafted high in the league with Indy. He had some questionable moments, and you're sitting there thinking like, why would they want him? But maybe I'm thinking about this from a perspective of a team that is desperately in need of a quarterback. Is a hit and miss. You won't hurt yourself. It won't hurt you, right? You don't get hurt if you try to swing on Anthony Richardson and develop him. And there's a lot. I read an article today yesterday saying that there's a lot of Lamar Jackson in him. I think he's a lot more inaccurate than Lamar Jackson was coming into the league. But that was an interesting one from that perspective of how Anthony Richardson has some similarities to Lamar Jackson and how it could work out well with Todd Monken. That one I still laughed at. And last one, last rumor I literally laughed at because this just doesn't happen. Denzel Ward would be cut to save money on the cap. Like Browns, like we constantly get these every year where this player is going to get cut because the Browns need to save cap space. And then like 3 weeks later, that player's contract gets restructured and he's still on the team and they're spending money on other players to fill the holes. And people are like, how are they doing this? It's like they've done it every year since Barry's been here. Actually, since they had to sign Watson. Well, they didn't have to. They decided to sign Watson to that huge contract. Um, Barry restructures. He figures it out and he works out the kinks in which this offense, this salary cap needs. Like we're fine on that. I'm not worried about Um, I'm not worried about what they're going to spend their money on. Well, I'm sorry, I lied. That's why I'm worried. I'm more worried about what they're going to spend their money on than if they're going to get the money to spend it. Because Barry has proven that he'll get the money. He just hasn't proven if he's spending it on the right people. Brian Wilson said, "Stop looking for a quarterback unless quarterback is all you need. Fix your team and see what you have in the roster." 100%, I agree. I'm on board with that 100%. That's why you run it back with Watson or Shador. You just run it back and you see what you have out of those two or three with Dylan Gabriel, and depending on how they. I don't want to forget about Dylan Gabriel because I forgot about Todd Monken, and he's our coach, and I forgot about Rutenberg, and he's our coach. He's our defensive coach. So I don't want to do any of that. So I'm always going to say, and don't forget Dylan Gabriel, because we can't ever rule out the other thing of something that the whole that's not going to happen mentality with our Browns. Because if we're saying it's not going to happen, most likely it can happen. Is high percentage. For real. James Frank says every year, I think I've seen about Ward getting cut or traded. 100%. Denzel Ward, I hope stays here for the rest of his career. I hope he Joe Thomas's his career. Now, if he does leave for a year to get a Super Bowl and gets a Super Bowl, I won't be mad at him because he deserves that. But I agree with you 100%. I think Denzel Ward needs to finish his career out here. 120%, actually. That's how much I agree with you on that. Yep. So that was the 5 rumors that I thought this week were insane. Also, what good news is that the Browns defense retained all of their guys that a lot of Browns fans were worried about losing. Banda and Tarver all signed to basically a promotion, probably more money. I'm going to call it now. Banda will be gone next year. He'll be a defensive coordinator somewhere else. He had many interests this year. That's why I was big on him getting the job, because I assume the Browns can see that there's interest there. But I also can see why they didn't. Probably Banda had some similarities to Schwartz, but they wanted somebody totally different outside of that. So, but good luck to Banda. He's gonna be good. I think he's gonna be a solid DC in this league. We'll see in a couple years, most likely. Let's get into some free agency talk. Okay. KB, before we do it, KB Young says only 2 quarterbacks I'd add is Snoop Huntley and Jameis Winston. Jameis Winston, I was at a establishment this weekend with the Gleam podcast. I met up with the 2 guys on the Gleam podcast. I like to meet up with other podcast people, especially locally, and we just talk about ideas and content. And they had a couple of questions for me about reels and content creation, which I do on my page and the Bearded Browns page. So I was helping the guys out, and somebody there at the bar came up to us, and we were talking about the Browns quarterback situation, and he brought up Jameis Winston. And I said, why? Why? And he said, well, Jameis Winston has a lot of similarities to Shador. He throws a lot of interceptions. No, I'm just playing. I'm just playing. He said there's a lot of similarities to Shador and Jameis's game, and maybe Jameis can help him. And I said, you know what? I didn't think about that. That's a very valid point. So yeah, KP, you can be onto something. Bringing Jameis here, and also Monken worked with him in Tampa, so there's another connection there. And also, Jameis is a fan favorite. So if you're going to bring a quarterback in here, and fans won't complain about it, it would be Jameis, because they're like, yeah, he's going to throw 8,000 interceptions a year, but he's going to make it look fun. That's my take on that. But let's talk about free agency real quick. We'll get into that. There's one guy specifically that a lot of Browns fans want on their offensive line, and his name is Rashid Walker, left tackle he's currently on Green Bay. Now, there's a lot of rumors he might get franchise tag because Green Bay wants him. But my question is, would you pay $20 million a year for him? Because that's what he's projected to get, 20 plus million, depending on how much into demand he is in. He is a left tackle. He's one of a few, I think, left tackles that are coming out in free agency. Let me double check that. You got Linderbaum. You got Linderbaum. But yeah, one of many free agents, left tackle free agents that are coming out, but he's probably one of the better ones. I got Linderbaum, Buffalo Bills guard, Walker, right tackle, guard. Yeah. So he's probably one of the only high left tackles coming out in free agency. That's why his demand is going to be so high because a lot of people need a left tackle. So my question to you guys is: are you willing to pay him 20 million a year? That is the number one question that gets asked every time this is presented. Is the number one question asked is this: how are we going to afford players? So if you're talking with somebody and you say, "Hey, I want this player who's going to make 20 something a year," right? The question is how you gonna afford him with no money? Browns always get hit with that question, like Browns have no money. How are they gonna do that? And you tell them, well, it's a restructuring. And I'm going to explain to you what restructuring is. I want you to imagine that you owe $100,000 on a credit card this year, and this big hit. This is a big hit to your budget. Big hit, right? But instead of paying it all back in this year, the bank says what we're going to do is now we're going to stretch that over 5 years. We're going to stretch that 100,000 that $10,000 credit card into 5-year payments. Now we're going to pause your payments. By that way, accrued interest, but you're going to have to pay this back. So now instead of paying a $10,000 bill in 1 year, you're now paying 2,000 for the next 5 years, which makes it more affordable for you to live on because you're now no longer worried about paying a $10,000 bill back. You're only paying 2,000 this year instead of 10. So there's some cap relief there. You're like, "Ooh, now I can go to Disney. I can I can afford to go to Disney now that I have 8,000 this year to spend." Right? So but you didn't erase the debt. You just created cap space to spend on future assets. You didn't erase it. You just push it back into the future. And that's what NFL teams do. So, to give you an example, a player makes $20 million base salary. The team covers about 10 million of that into a signing bonus. Now, that 10 million gets spread over 5 years. That 2 million per year goes on the cap instead of the 10 million hitting right now. So, this year the cap hit drops a lot. And here's the catch: you are borrowing from the future. So if that player gets cut later, all that pushback money hits your cap all at once. And that's what people call dead money. So the pros of restructuring a contract is it helps you right now. It frees up money to sign players currently. But the pushback is it pushes into future years. Now, here's the benefit of pushing it back to future years is that every year in the NFL, the cap has gone up pretty significantly. So even if you push it back into next year, the cap or the money, most likely you're going to still have a little bit more because the NFL is going to give you more money to spend. So Barry has strategically worked this method into this team to where, hey, we're going to give you this money, but every year we're going to restructure certain contracts to give us money to free up. And this year he has the ability to free up about 48,250,000. So this is called $48 million. KP Young says, I'd stick to drafting offensive lineman. We have Zenter who might be able to get fixed at right guard. That's a good thing because you have Warhop now, right? Now the big thing about Warhop is he's basically like Callahan. He knows his stuff when it comes to offensive linemen. So I'm glad you brought that up because that's something that I was going to bring up later in why are we focusing on Rashid? But I'll hit it on it now. You have a supposedly offensive lineman whisperer in Warhop. Can we see what we have in Zenter? Can we see before we assume that he's not good? Maybe he just wasn't being talked to correctly. Maybe he wasn't being taught right. But I think Warhop is the elephant in the room that no one is talking about when it comes to this offensive line. I think his ability, his experience of offensive line teaching is valuable and not being talked about enough. That's a good point, KP. Thanks for bringing that up. But the Browns have an opportunity to clear up $48 million in cap space by doing two moves, and that's restructuring Deshaun Watson's contract and restructuring Denzel Ward's contract. Now, you can cut Cornelius Lucas, which they probably will. You also get an insurance payout of 5 million for Deshaun Watson and JOK's injuries. Um, Depending on Joe Bitonio, I'm not going to count that because that doesn't. I'm not going to even count that because if he goes into retirement, you can save 16 million, which is huge for this team. But overall, if you get those to happen, you restructure, you cut Cornelius Lucas, and you get that 5 million from the insurance payout, you're going to have about $60 million to spend just from restructuring contracts and working cap space the way that way that I was gonna call him Kevin. Weird. He does. What is his name? Barry does. Also, too, you have to think too. We also have to sign a kicker, right, and our long snapper. Those are guys that need to be resigned. Also, too, I personally would like to either sign and extend Delpit right now before he gets into the open market because I think right now if you pay him the open market right now for a safety, I read it was like 16 to 19 mil a year, depending on what their numbers are. And I think he would get the 19. But if you let him go next year, that value is going to go up even more. So he's going to get over close to 20, 22 next year if you're going to try to play that game with him. So I think the priority is to try to focus on Delpit because uh, your your defensive coordinator Rudy is very your safeties are important. You need to sign Delpit, who's an inbox safety who can play all over field, he can tackle, he can hit the quarterback, he can hit hard and force fumbles. He's reach. Um, Good point, KB. They can also restructure Miles Garrett, making more. Uh, KB said, could restructuring Miles Garrett make more sense than keeping restructuring Watson? Um, Maybe. I'm not going to say yes or no. I guess the best answer is I don't know. Can they do both? Well, no, you can only restructure so many. So, um, I don't know, man. I think Watson might be more. I think that's why they want to restructure. I could be wrong. I'm pretty sure. And also, to you restructure Watson, he's going to get cut. Supposedly, this is what I've been reading. He's going to get cut post June 1st, anyways. Um, just restructuring his contract one more year. It's just creating more cap space from what I've been reading. Um, but yeah, that leaves about 60 million that you can play with in free agency, hypothetically, right? So if you pay Rasheed Wallace, which is his demand of 20 million a year, low end, are you going to be okay with that? Now I looked into not Wallace, Rasheed Walker's numbers. A lot of people are going to get upset. PFF triggers a lot of people, but PFF rankings amongst all leading tackles left and right. His PFF grade for run blocking, which is very crucial. I think we need to understand that Todd Monken's not going to come in here and try to throw the ball 50 times like Kevin did. I really think he was sincere when he says we're going to work on our run game. I think that's why he got a offensive line coach with lots of experience. He's done it in uh, Baltimore where he run the ball. He's run the ball consistently. So, but Walker's run block grade was 53.7, ranked 51st amongst left tackles and right tackles. His pass block grade is 69, which is good, but it's 40th amongst tackles. 40 pressures, which is tied for 16th. 32 hurries, which is tied for ninth. By the way, I know you guys heard that. When I think of hurries, I think of him running after Jordan Love saying, "Run, Jordan, Miles is coming after you." That was that guy. So I understand Miles is like a generational talent and it's been hard to block him, but he struggled when it came to run blocking and at Green Bay. And if you follow any Green Bay, if you listen to Green Bay radio, one of the things that they talk about, sports radio, one of the things they talk about is should we franchise tag him or somebody else because he does have weaknesses on the offensive line. Offensive line. So he has 32 hurries. He's allowed 5 sacks, which is good. He's tied for 22, low in sacks. and 5 penalties, which is tied for 6th. Now, in comparison, our left tackle last year was Cam Robinson. His run block grade was 48.3, which was 55th ranked. So you have you're going from the 55th ranked run blocker to the 51st run blocker. You're just paying him 20 million. Are we okay with that? Or do you think, hey, I think if you get this guy 20 million, you get in here, Warhop can work on his weaknesses. That's my positive Browns mentality. Is I thought about that. I'm like, well, maybe he just wasn't taught well, and maybe here they have a lot of teachers on the coaching staff that are going to teach him. He might be valuable here. But just to let you know, he was ranked 51st. Cam Robinson was ranked 55th. Pass block grade, he was a lot better, 25 more ranked better because Cam Robinson was ranked 56.2, was ranked 65th. Now, pressures is interesting because, like I said, Rashid, while Rashid has allowed 40 pressures, the same amount as Cam Robinson. KP says just sign Jed Wills to prove a deal. I brought that up one time to Mike and who helps who does me and him do that Tuesday show with Chad, and Mike doesn't like. I would be interested. I don't know. I don't think Jed Wills would be interested in coming back. I think he kind of like Teller is like over Cleveland. But yeah, I agree. I would be. It would be interesting if you sign Jed Wills. That would be. I mean, he would be cheap, but you would have to play him at right tackle because he really wasn't good left tackle. He's a better at right tackle. But it was one of those things that they drafted him and tried to play him in left, and just did not go well at all there. But 40 pressures for Cam Robinson, 40 pressures for Rashid. 21 hurries, which for Cam Robinson, 32 hurries. So he got more. Walker had more hurries. Rasheed Wallace had more hurries. Then you have penalties. They're both basically tied 5 penalties for Rashid and then 6 penalties for Cam Robinson. So I mean, basically what I'm trying to say is like basically they're the same tackle here. You have 2 left tackles that have graded out about the same on PFF, and people hated Cam Robinson, but yet are advocating to bring in Rashid. That's scary to me. That is definitely alarming to me. Yeah, Rashid's 26 too. He's not young either. Good point, James. Are you going to pay him 4 years? Most likely. Let me see what they're projecting him to get. I think it was 4 years, 20 million each year, Linderbaum. 3 years, 3 to 4 years, between 18 and $22 million a year is what Rasheed Walker would get. So, I mean, is that worth it? I mean, you're if you have 60 million a year, 20 is going right out to a left tackle that is best year was a Cam Robinson left tackle. We have to ask ourselves, is this the right move? Just because he is out there and he's labeled as the best available doesn't technically mean he's the best available for a team, mainly because he's not a good run blocker. That's just my take. I don't know if you guys agree with that, but if you do, let me know below. If that helps you a little bit of why I'll probably talk more about this on the Bearded Browns show when we talk about offensive linemen, why I think we should really go draft heavy on the offensive line. Because I think that's probably the best option. Now, there's other options out there but a lot of these people are like 30, like Brendan Smith, he's 30 years old. They have Wyatt Teller on here, which is scary. David Edwards is 28 for the Bills. That might be an option. 18 to 28 mil. He's a guard, 3 to 4 year deal. 18 to 20 mil. Linderbaum's out there, but you're going to give him 4 to 5 years, 18 to 20 mil plus. Are you going to pay him a center that nonetheless? Uh, Vera Tucker, he's a guard, 3 to 4 years. He did have a tricep injury last year. He is 26, but he's rated at a 14 to 17 million. Cade Mays, he's a center, 10 to 12 mil. The problem is he's 25. That's not too bad. 25 years old. Will you be okay with giving him 10 to 12 mil a year for 3 to 4 years? Now, there's a lot more talent out there to me. And then you have uh yeah, that's about it actually. On offensive line is very, very slim offensive line free agency there. At least the top six that I've seen. James, I'd rather them draft a guy these coaches can teach in their scheme and techniques from them entering the leagues. I agree. I agree. That's why I that's funny. KP's right on. I was going to suggest Vera Tucker. Did I talk about Vera Tucker? Yep, I did. He's 26, 14 to 17 mil, 3 to 4 years. He does have a tricep injury, but here's the deal. Like maybe you could take advantage of that injury, say, hey, come improve it, and then we'll work on that later with a more of a deal. I would be interested in Tucker as a guard. But then again, and maybe I didn't see a lot of I think the guys that are coming out are right tackles in the draft. So you would have to draft your right tackle in the draft and somehow find your left tackle somewhere. Maybe a sign and trade somewhere. I don't know. Or maybe a trade, not sign and trade. Sorry. Um, but I think what we need to focus on too, and this is going to be my last topic of the night, is the Browns free agency when it comes to. I'm going to talk about nickel corner specifically because Rudy schemed, Coach Rudy is schemed up to be nickel heavy and another safety behind Delpit heavy. So I think they call that a free safety. So that's what makes me interested in Downs because he can play above Delpit, and that would be insane for the next couple of years to watch. But I can understand why you can't because again we addressed it. You need offensive tackle. I might have to change my mind on who I really want and convince myself that maybe going offensive tackle for the first 2 picks, like Daniel Jeremiah put out in his latest draft, mock draft, might be the smart option. Because if you can get a right tackle and a guard, and then you can get a guard and left tackle in free agency, maybe that would work out for you. But a couple of corners I want to talk about specifically that I think the Browns should target. Now, there's a guy out there, but he's expensive. Let me pull this up. He's super expensive for us. Now, this would be scheme specific, by the way. It'll be scheme specific. It's somebody that will fit into Coach Rudy's scheme. There might be higher rated corners, but you also need a corner that can play inside, and that limits a couple of people. Um, First person I thought of was Janelle Watson from the Kansas City Chiefs. Press cover, elite. He's an extending player, zone capable. Watson posted a career high of 74.9 PFF in 2025, improving every single season. The problem with him is 3 years, 51 million. So you're looking at a little under what, 10, 12, 15, about 17, 18 mil a year ish. Now PFF has him as a target priority for the Browns, but I just can't see them paying that high for somebody that's just going to play nickel. And I get that. Like ideally, like that would be the perfect person if you can afford the money to put on nickel. So they're going to go with somebody, Jamel Dean from Tampa Bay. He's a capable man. Dean is a premier free agent cornerback in this class. He's ranked fourth amongst all corners in PFF with 81.5. In 2025, he allowed the league's best 46.9 passer rating when targeted. His 86.9 outside coverage grade over the last 3 years ranks in the 94th percentile. He's never posted a PFF coverage grades below 70, which is really good if you follow PFF. Problem with him is 3 years, 54 million. So he's going to be a little more than the person I just said. That's a lot of money. A lot of money. So you're going to have to dig deep, look down, scroll all the way down at these corners that are available. And there's one name in particular I want to see what you guys think of. Well, that's the safety class. I'm not going to talk about that today. Um, I like this guy here. Uh, where you go? Brian Cook. Safety. Sorry. I'm getting into safeties, Angel. Don't get ahead of yourself. He's a corner. You need a corner. I like Jamel Dean. I don't know if they're going to pay that much for him. I also like, where is he at? Dang it. Dean, Charvel Wright. Charvel Wright. He's a hybrid zone man, outside physical, but can play inside. He's a ball hawk. He's in Chicago. He's 27. You can fit right in. Sam says restructure. What's up, Sam? The man. Saturday show, 10 a.m. Brown's Morning Brew. Check him out. He will. They've been doing good things over there. Taylor. Anate Taylor from the New Orleans. He's 26. He's a slot outside cornerback. This is the guy I really think the Browns should get. He'd be 11 mil a year, 3 years. Overall PFF score of 70.5. He's played 1,500 snaps, both outside, inside. So they like that versatility. And that's something we need to think about. Versatility when it comes to this scheme allows more flexibility in play calling, which you can disguise more. So I think Taylor from the New Orleans Saints, who plays slot and outside safety, outside corner, would be perfect for Cleveland Browns. Stop spending money on defense, top 5. Spend on your offense, bottom 2. Yes, you do have to stop spending money on your defense. 100% agree, but you still need defense. You need 2 key positions now. I think they're going to get the bottom of the barrel guys, which they probably spend less than 11 mil a year on. They're probably going to look for the target range of 8 to 10. But you do need a slot corner, maybe someone you can draft in the later rounds. But are you going to want to bring in somebody who's going to learn the NFL game, or are you going to be okay with somebody who already knows it? Because if you bring in a rookie to play slot, he's going to get picked on because he's adjusting. So your defense has to be sensitive to that. And maybe Coach Rudy will be understanding of that and somehow draw up schemes where he's not exposed. But if you can bring in somebody like Taylor for the Saints, who is experienced, who's one of the best, and you can pay him for the next 3 years, and he's young, he's only 26. By the time his contract is done, he'll be 30, and then he's out the door. And then maybe in that meantime, you draft a slot guy that can play consistently. You can sub in and out him in the rookie to get playing time. But I really think we need to understand that safety and nickel corner are very important in this next coming draft, and if they or even free agency, if they sign somebody, don't be surprised if it's a safety or a corner, which specifically will be a nickel dominant. I did read out there for a safety, Jamil Peppers is available. If anybody would be interested, his trajectory is 1 year, 4 million. That's the type of deal that I can see. I don't know if him exactly, but a player that's been around the league for this long, he's 29 going into 30, just one more deal he's looking for another year or 2. I see them doing that at safety. And I think you can kind of get away with that. I don't know. From what I've been reading, Rutenberg's needs a strong guy in the safety position because he relies so much on them. So that's why I'm like, man, you need an actual name back there, somebody who knows how to do their job, smart enough to recognize coverages and adjust. It's like guys come in all the time through the draft. I watched Tampa do it in the last 2 years. Yeah, I agree. You probably get a slot guy in the draft. I'm not denying that. I'm just more worried about Rutenberg's demand on that nickel and his demand being a rookie. What about Miles Harden? Could be. As safety too, I like the guy we have now. He's just young, and I think he made a couple mistakes this past year that gets me scared in the pass game. I think he got exposed a little bit. Hickman, but we'll see how they work that out. And then again, maybe Coach Rudy can coach him up and develop him into better. And that would be a win for Barry if he can sign Hickman Jr. because he said, hey, he's an undrafted free agent that I found, and he's on his second contract, and he's improving. Maybe he's one of those guys that you can sign and then still develop him when you can get a guy with a 1 or 2 year deal like Peppers to come in and kind of mentor him to be better. There's Marcus Epps also out there for the Vegas Raiders. He's 29. He's going to command 2 years, which is ideally what you would want. Maybe you pay him upfront more, and then by that way you can make that last year not hurt you as much. But Justin Gilbert is available. No, we're good. Well, I actually thought that would be pretty good, probably in the slot. He was here, and we just traded him off to Jacksonville's Newsom. Like Newsom probably would have been a good fit, but the problem is you probably wouldn't have been able to play him there because uh you needed that trade to get that physical corner in Campbell. Um, but that's it, man. Man, it's going to be interesting to see what Barry does. He's put himself in the hole here to where it just sucks because if you really look at the draft as a whole, and this is why I'm interested in the receiving group, um, in this year's draft, I really feel this receiving group is very deep, especially in the later rounds. And it just stinks because Barry has put so much ignorance on the offensive line that he might have to draft that dominant this year. And you're going to be passing up on some potential late round St. Brown type of receivers that are going to come out and surprise people. And unfortunately, we're going to miss out because instead of a receiver that you can sneak on your team, you're going to have to probably take a reach or a flyer on a late round tackle or center because you just ignored your issue of aging offensive linemen for a couple of years. It's just pretty bad. It's just pretty bad. Yeah, you know what? And Sam, you just brought it to my attention. Corey Bojorquez is a free agent too. He's a free agent. And Sam, James, Emerson wasn't a nickel. He was outside corner, and then they put Newsom in as nickel. But if you bring Emerson back on a prove it deal after this injury, you're going to have to be worried also. Like, is he going to perform? Because usually people with that type of injury he had, it takes about a year to recover from, even playing. So you're not going to get the best out of him next year. But we'll see. A lot of people tell me your receiver. Hey, let's go down this road. What receiver do you guys want? I got Brazel, second round. Sam's got my guy too, Denzel Boston. You know why I realize I keep on calling him David Boston? There's a connection there. David Boston, I believe, is his father. I could be wrong, but when I go back and I watch and listen to I'm like, why do I keep on calling this dude David Boston? That's why I think there's some family tree thing going there. But David Boston, Denzel Boston would be one of the guys I'm interested at 24 because he's tall, he's a good build, and he's outside. You think he's James Makai Lemon is my number one guy. I agree with you on that. I think what Monken can do with him is Zay Flower-ish, and I think that can help your team. Now, I would be worried about Isaiah Bond's height, having a lot of small receivers out there, but I wouldn't mind getting Makai Lemon and then like a taller guy in the second. I did a pick this today. I did a mock draft where I traded down to 13, and I ended up getting Denzel Boston and Makai Lemon in the first round. I thought to myself, man, that would be That would be beautiful if they can get both of those receivers, and then I get in the second round. I end up trading down for an extra second round. I end up getting my offensive lineman and offensive tackle, so it ended up being a good one for me. Now, ideally, that's probably won't happen, but I thought, hey, if something like this happen, that'd be great. Brian says, I think two big receivers would be nice, Boston and Brazel. My problem is where are these receivers going to fit? Like if you draft too many, what are you going to do? You can't draft, you can't cut Judy. But you can't put him down as number 2, and that might be better for him. You do have Isaiah Bond, who they paid him this money. I think they paid him most of it up front. Forgot the amount, but they pretty much paid him, so he's gonna be here. They're not gonna cut him. So, I mean, you have 2 or 3 receivers there. Tillman's still kind of on the team. You can cut him. The other guys you can probably work around, but, like, you can't this draft, you can't draft receiver dominant because not just because of the offensive line, but you already have so many receivers that they've invested in already, well, specifically 2. So I say 1 to 2 receivers is who they're going to get. I think a tight end is who they're going to get. I do think Isaiah Bond is not being talked about enough, just like James Frank just brought up in the comments. I think Isaiah Bond is going to have a year next year if healthy. He's going to come into camp. He's going to have it under his belt. He's going to be familiar with the system. He's not going to have fresh legs being signed and going and playing right away. KPX, KP Young X, Malachi Corey still under contract. No, I think you would have to sign him, but he would be interesting. You might get him for cheap too, and he did some good things too. Havana said, "Good thing you have the 48th ranked Pro Bowl quarterback." I mean, come on, man. He's gonna have to. He should improve, and this is what my thinking is. Last year, like every rookie, you have so much rookie demand going into the year. You got the combine you're focusing on. You got everything you're focusing on other than playing ball. So this year, I'm hoping that you come in and you play ball, you focus, and you improve. Well, I think with a better offensive line and better talent, I think Shador can be good. My worry is how patient they're going to be because if you're getting a whole new offensive line, that they have to gel. And then you have to build chemistry with the receivers, whether they're new or if you're coming back. And it seems like Jerry Jeudy didn't care too much for Shador. So I mean, there's a lot of like things there that are just like it's not as easy as just saying push Shador out there, he'll do good, you know. But I think he'll be good. We'll see. We'll see. Have a sleeper tight end that could be easy converted into NFL receiver. He's also played quarterback, big kid, and college. He sent wide out often. Who is that, Sam? Did you say that already? Or am I missing it? Sam says Bond. I didn't see the name. Have a sleeper tight end that could easily be converted into a NFL wide receiver. Who's that tight end? Maybe I was just reading that wrong. Havana is not a fan of Shador. He says that 21 sacks were breathtaking. Come on. The offensive line was horrible, man. Oh, here, Fannin. I think they're not going to I don't think they're going to put him as a receiver. I think they're going to want to keep him at tight end, halfback. That's what they call it, or hybrid. I think the reason why you keep him at tight end is because there's always going to be a mismatch there when lining up. And I think adding a tight end that can block would help him not block. I think I said that last year on a Tuesday show, Bearded Browns. I said, I wish they can find a way to let him block less. And I know that sounds improper for a development reason because he does need to block, but I think he is so much more appealing when he's catching the ball. Yeah. So, well, that's all I got for you tonight, guys. Thanks for commenting below. The AFC North was weakened a little as the 2 top coaches are gone. Zach Taylor is the lone man standing. You do have a point there. The AFC is wide open. Browns have a weak schedule next year. I thought I saw in some clips already, they already projected to win about 6.5 games next year. So you got one game more than this year. So that's encouraging. But we'll see what they do in the draft. I'll be here next week. Maybe we can talk about at the combine stuff. Um, I might have somebody on. We might talk about Caleb Downs a little bit in combine. I'm hoping to get that situated. I'll try to be on next week. Don't know what's going to happen. My life is insane. One thing is consistent. I will be here Tuesday, 7:30 live all platforms for the Bearded Browns podcast. And then Saturday, 10 a.m., my dude Sam Lacafera is going to be on with Mike, Gary, and Logan for the Browns Morning Brew. They're going to probably talk about their combine sleepers and combine excitement players that they're excited about. So tune in there. So, just keep watching, keep tuning in, and we'll pumping out content for you. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Appreciate it. Till next time, like always, go Browns.